Yes, my favorite time of the week. I say it every Tuesday. And this is even extra special because some of you were probably looking for us last Tuesday and we had a little bit of a technical glitch. And so we couldn't make it happen, but we're making it happen tonight. We're making it happen on May 3rd. And I'm so excited because you are going to just get so much from this wonderful guest that I have. So I was so excited that she was still able to join us. So we're going to jump right in. This is Linda Talaferro, Being Brown at Work Live. And I have Leslie Bednars with me. Some of you probably know who she is because you've been following us on LinkedIn, ready for this conversation. But for those of you who don't, let me introduce you to Leslie. Leslie joined Farcia in 2019 and assumed her current role as strategy and M&A leader for Farcia's Clean Mobility North America. She is responsible for collaboratively leading transformation, evolution, and strategic initiatives of the division to achieve zero emissions and sustainable mobility. Over 20 years of experience in automotive and mobility industries, Leslie began her career at Johnson Controls, the automotive group now Adient, where she started as a complete seat engineer before holding a series of engineering and finance roles. In 2007, Leslie transitioned into management consulting, where she specialized in strategy projects focused on business growth for clients in on and off highway transportation markets. In 2015, she returned to industry as the Global Director of Advanced Supply Chain Management and Commodity Management at Intiva Products. Participating in industry associations such as Inforum's Automotive Next Women's Leadership Series and OESA's Young Leadership Council have been automotive groups Leslie has enjoyed being part of throughout her career. Leslie holds a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Michigan, go Wolverines, an MBA from Wayne State, and is a certified professional coach. She is married to her best friend, Kent, and has four incredible children. In her spare time, she works with her daughter's hockey team around mindfulness, mental strength, and resilience practices. And she loves to watch her kids and all of their activities from hockey, football, and baseball to tennis, basketball, and volleyball. When there are a few extra moments in the day, Leslie also likes to squeeze in a round or two of golf. Leslie, welcome to Being Brown at Work Live.
Good evening, Linda. Thanks for having
Yay!
me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Oh, it is truly an honor, Leslie. Truly an honor. And like I said in the opening, although we had that challenge last Tuesday, I'm just so thankful that you had more time in your schedule so that our audience wouldn't miss out on this critical topic. It's not one that we've really delved into yet on being brown at work. That's why I thought it was so critically important when you and I talked at our discovery call about what we were going to share. So let's just jump right into it because it seemed like it was near and dear to your heart. And I know there's going to be so much value out of it. So, when we talk about cultural impacts, I mean, I titled this How Your Cultural Background Could Hurt or Help
Mhm.
Your Career. Just that in itself, cultural background. What do you really mean by that, Leslie?
Cultural background, we think about culture and immediately it comes into my mind is like ethnic background,
Yeah, people
right?
go to that quickly. Yes,
Right.
yes.
But it's also religious background. It's also socioeconomic background.
Hmm.
It's all of the things that help shape people's values and beliefs as, what they carry with them, as in our adulthood.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, it's in essence how you were raised, right? I
Hmm.
mean, it's those things like with your children, what you're instilling in them. I know what your parents instilled in you, mine instilled in me, and it does shape who you are. So when you think about your particular situation, if you don't mind, if we can,
Sure.
if you could share your experiences when you were trying to decide who Leslie Bednars was going to be, right? You're trying to figure out your career, where you're going to go to school, what you're going to major in, what do you want to be? How did those cultural um, aspects of your life play a role in your choices?
this is fun because I got to reflect back on, how did I end up where I am, right? So
Yeah.
my parents are Filipino immigrants. So I'm first
Okay.
generation. My sister and I are first generation born and raised here in the US.
Ah,
So that's key to understand.
yes, it
So
is.
my parents growing up in the Philippines, they were raised a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then here they come in the 70s as 20-year-olds, right? 20
Wow.
somethings.
Mm-hmm.
They come to a brand new country and they don't know the practices and behaviors and the mindset. They
Right.
they came with what they knew, and they came to the United States, and they came here independently. They were single and they met here. So now,
Ah,
yes,
okay. Wow.
yes. So
Wow.
so now they meet here, and then they get married here, and then they raise a family here in a culture and a background that they weren't themselves raised in. So they had to
Yeah.
learn to navigate. They had to learn to navigate, what are the societal rules, what is
Mm-hmm.
etiquette, and what is acceptable here.
Right.
And then raise their children, based on how they interpreted what their experiences were.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the culture that they knew growing up, they gave to us. And so, for instance, Asians tend to be, very much hierarchical, right? I grew
Yes.
up with that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so it's respect your elders, respect authority, don't
Mm-hmm.
talk back. Even if you believe they're wrong, or maybe your authority
Right.
is wrong, you don't challenge that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Okay.
so that's, what I grew up knowing. And my parents were my mom was a nurse, and my dad had a
Okay.
mechanical engineering degree.
Oh, okay.
So that's what was modeled for me. That's what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was thinking about what am I going to do with my career, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have a front row seat to at least these two things. And the nursing model wasn't my jam.
Okay.
But I like the math and science. And so I continued to pursue that. And so, my parents were very, very involved in making sure I knew what I wanted to do, at least have a plan, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
another cultural influence. They didn't go so far as to say, dictate, you
Mm-hmm.
will be this, you will be a
Okay.
doctor, you will do this. But they say you need to figure this out. You're gonna go to university. So it was always go to school.
Yes.
Not going to school wasn't an option. Um, Going to the best university you could get into, strive for the
Yes.
best,
Yes.
do that, have a plan. And and they definitely were telling me, if you're going to go to a big university, you're not going to waste this money. So you need to know what you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
and pursue it. So
Yes.
that was the guidance I got, right? Based on what
Right.
they knew what their experience was coming to the States, what their careers were able to provide with regards to quality of life,
Yeah.
and wanting, every generation wants it better for the next
Sure.
generation,
Sure.
right? And so
Absolutely.
they gave me
Absolutely.
guidance and influence to make sure that the choices I made were going to give me a better quality of life, or strive for a better quality of life than that what I knew. So
I got it.
yes,
Yeah.
certainly the culture was a big impact on.
Big in your choices. Absolutely. And you had, role models,
Mhm.
to follow by. So, if we dig a little bit more into what you just said, Leslie, because I find it fascinating. I've been to the Philippines many times, and I find it fascinating, this cultural thing, especially for women, right?
Mhm.
And we enter into corporate America. We already, we have all these intersectionalities, gender, race, age, everything.
Yes.
So, in your personal experience, being Filipino or a woman of color, and your cultural part of your DNA, let's
Mhm.
say, did you have any challenges? Were there any things that happened through your career as you were moving and growing, especially moving up within corporations, various different companies, that the challenges you faced that were rooted in that culture that you had to figure out, how to address, how to handle. Can you give us some examples of how that happened to you and what you did?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
I mentioned the hierarchy.
yes.
That was a big one for me.
Mm,
So learning to navigate that and having to challenge that, being aware of that for myself, that this corporate environment, especially in automotive, we say the things we say, have a seat at the table. This corporate environment appreciates diversity of thought,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
We
yeah, we
say
say
that.
it. We
We
say
we say it.
it.
We
We do.
say it.
We do.
And actually having to put it into practice, both on the listening
Mm,
end and
mm,
on the speaking out end.
yes.
So I had to really, I, I more naturally keep quiet. And so
Okay.
learning how to use my voice, share the thought, challenge consensus and be
Mm,
bold when appropriate.
mhm, mhm,
Right? Those
mhm,
were all things that didn't come naturally and that I've
mhm.
had to work to be aware of and
Yes.
put into practice despite how uncomfortable it could
Yeah.
be.
Right.
But knowing that and saying, no, that you have a voice, you're here for a reason,
Mhm. Absolutely.
contribute. But that takes
Yes.
a lot of energy to
Oh my
to think
gosh.
about and actually
And
do.
to do, yes, Leslie. And and you and I were chatting before you went live a little bit. And when I work with my clients, I have this process I use called peel back, connect, and grow. And what you just shared about what you did that peeling back. You realized, okay, part of me is not to challenge. Part of my DNA, how I was raised, was to respect the hierarchy. Yet I'm in corporate America, yet I have a career, yet I aspire to move up. And the environment does not lend itself to that. Because if you're too quiet and you're in the corner and you're the wallflower, you get passed over, right?
Mhm.
I mean, nobody knows you're in the room.
Mhm.
And like you said, true, we say diversity of thought. We say seat at the table. So you
Mhm.
shared your side of that dynamic and challenge. Share with us a little bit the other side. So the listening side. Have you had any
Oh.
challenges there?
There are often times for me listening or feeling like I'm being heard.
That last part right there.
That
That
can
part.
be tough, right? Not only
Mm,
being Asian American, but also being a female, and there's not a lot of female presence. We want to see more of it,
right,
right, in
right,
automotive. And
right.
so being so often, I'm sure you experience it too, being the only female at the table in the room.
Yeah.
And I constantly remind myself, right? This isn't about just me. This is for women. So be the voice of women,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so voicing, sharing a thought or giving a comment, believing there's value to it, knowing there's value to it. But you
Mm-hmm.
see
Mm-hmm.
it, I'll see it in the face of my male colleagues. There's maybe just dismissing it,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yes.
professional courtesy, tolerating it
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of the appearance of it.
Yep.
But that's hard to see also.
It is.
It is really
And
hard.
and I'm glad you shared that, Leslie, because it's real.
Hmm.
I mean, it happens. And what's interesting is I don't I don't know that they realize that we see it happen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That we feel it, we see it. Um, so I want to ask you, what are some of the specific landmines? So if there's my audience is full of people that look like you and me.
Hmm.
So, what would you say are some of the landmines that you want our fellow sisters, our fellow women in corporate America, irrespective of industry, but we live the automotive world. Um, what should they be aware of? What should they look out for? And if you could offer how they could handle, the few of the examples that you give them.
Being a woman in this industry, it's not an easy role,
Right.
but I've been so blessed to see so many amazing, strong women,
Hmm.
kind of break through,
Yes.
and model what good female leaders are. And
Yes.
we've seen other female leaders not be
Not
so
so. Yes.
make her road maybe a little challenging also.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And
Yep.
so maybe along those lines, helping women um, be those more positive leaders.
Mm.
I've
Yes.
seen that model where women have have mirrored the male behavior of that
Ah,
command and control, where for some reason it's perceived by men to be leadership, but for women they're overbearing and
right.
a bit dragon lady, off-putting, and it's off-putting,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's a style that maybe works for some men, and can also backfire on some women.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
so my Jan Griffiths does this, the authentic leadership, gravitas, right? Gravitas
Hmm. Hmm.
Detroit. The women being strong in their own power. If
Yes.
we can really hold true to really what our strengths are, and not subscribe to the model that works for men, but maybe not necessarily work for us. Stay true
Right.
to ourselves, who we are, and
Yes.
honor what our strengths are. I think that's a really positive way of leadership that can be different.
Oh, I love what you just said. Honor what your strength is. I mean, I think there's so much power in when when certain words are chosen, and you used honor. I think it
Hmm.
says a lot, right? I mean, that's such a strong message and wonderful advice to honor ourselves in our authenticity, recognizing our strengths so that we can show up like that, fully authentically ourselves, and not having to take on, these other personality traits, things that just won't, you can't sustain it anyway. I mean,
No.
it's not who you are, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
you're not going to be able to sustain it anyway. And it's not going to bode well for you 9 times out of 10. Now, you just said there are those women, though. I mean, I've worked with them. I don't think I've ever had a boss like that, but I've worked with them, whatever. Some of them are just exactly that. I still don't think it worked very well for them, to be frank with you. But
Right.
that's the choice they made.
That's
That's
right.
that's great advice, Leslie. That's such great advice. Um, so, when we're talking about trying to show up our authentic self, when we're talking about owning who we are, finding that voice, knowing that our thought process, our ideas, our recommendations um, are noteworthy and worth being shared and heard. What would you say, Leslie, on the flip side of that, right? What would you say that organizations, leaders, members, managers, what is their role in this, right? What would you like to see them do that takes this cultural background issue away, or at least reduces the negative impact of it?
Oh, sure. That it's that awareness,
Mm,
that like really being aware that their journey or other people's journey are different from theirs.
mhm.
And just because you had a certain journey doesn't mean that they had to have the same journey to achieve the success that you have.
Ah, yes.
And so being open-minded enough to really listen
Mm,
and believe and find the strength in each of the team members that you're working with, because
mhm.
we're all human.
Sure.
And so being able to take away that judgment and of these of your colleagues, they're not right, they're not wrong, they just are.
Are.
And
Yes.
so and
Yes.
so just really being open-minded, taking away the judgment, really listening and believing that what they have is value, because there is value there. Like,
Oh,
if
absolutely.
people listen to it, then they will see that value. Real leaders will see the
That's
value
it.
in each
Yes.
team member, and they'll be able to position it to be the most productive for the betterness of the team and the business. Real
Oh,
leaders can
absolutely.
do that.
Real leaders. We use that word so loosely, leaders. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've used it a little too loosely. There are people who have roles of authority, power, but they're not all leaders. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that I'd necessarily want to follow them. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So I'm so glad you used the word real leaders. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you put that real in front of there because that's so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with you. They would recognize and they would live what you said earlier, right? That diversity of thought is
Mm-hmm.
better. They would
Yes.
live that day to day. They would
Yeah,
live that for sure, for
that's
sure.
true. I think of
Yes,
that. There's the managers and there's the leaders.
yes, yes, yes. Managers. Managers, like the ones that manage tasks and try to manage people. You go do this, you go do that, rather than lead, inspire, motivate. Have a servant-based mentality, part of the servant-based mentality of it. All of that. That's leadership to
I
me.
agree. I
Yes.
agree.
I love that. So Leslie, as we get ready to wrap this up, when we've talked about so many wonderful things, and I'm so glad you shared, your parents' experience, and then coming to this country. It's just sounds like a wonderful love story that they both came and then they met. I mean, don't you think that they met in the U.S., they came with a purpose and a goal for themselves,
Yes.
and then they found each other. It just sounds wonderful, beautiful to me. So, as you were sharing that and some of the challenges that you've faced, if you were to put all of that together and we're talking to our audience now, and some of them, and it's irrespective of cultural background, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. Philippine, African American, Latina, it doesn't matter, right? We all have those same upbringings that have those nuances to them that shape who we are, and it impacts our professional lives. And as my audience know, I say this all the time: who you are personally is who you are professionally.
1,000%.
Can't separate it,
You
right?
cannot.
Can't separate it. You might try, you might think you're doing it. Well, you're not.
You are one
So
person.
you are exactly. You are exactly. So if you were to, as we close this, what would be a few things you'd like to make sure that our audience leaves with?
So it'll be easy for me to say these things, and people will think, "Oh yeah, of course." But actually putting these things into practice is
Practice.
where the challenge lays.
Mm.
But I would say be aware, stay in that awareness, be open-minded about others and
Yes.
and and their journeys without judgment. Just recognize that there are people that their journey is not like yours, and it doesn't mean that they're better or worse than you,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
just,
Absolutely.
be open-minded about their journey.
Hmm.
And then from that, don't be afraid to challenge your beliefs. Just because
Mm.
you grew up knowing certain things that may have served you during that time of, upbringing, you're
Hmm.
an adult now living a different life in a different world. And so how true are those beliefs anymore?
Wow.
Maybe they are true still, but maybe they're not. And so
Hmm.
being open enough to challenge your own beliefs, I think, is really powerful.
That is powerful. And that just supports what you said because it's scary,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the execution, the doing part of that is scary,
Yep.
especially when you question them and you're like, ooh, that's not
Yes.
working for me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then it
yeah.
puts you in an uncomfortable spot, right? Because
Yeah,
these are
yeah.
your beliefs and values, and you're like, then it kind of shakes you, like,
It does. It does.
whoa,
Yeah, yeah,
whoa.
yeah, yeah.
But you come back from it.
You do.
You do. You
True
rebuild.
growth, true
That's
growth,
right.
true growth. Yeah.
That's right. And so
Yeah.
I think it's also important to, stay educated, right? The intercultural differences, especially when you work for a non-US headquartered
Hmm.
company.
Right.
So learning that those intercultural differences, there's trainings that are offered by companies
Sure.
oftentimes.
Hmm.
Be open to that. Educate yourself. Be open to the education. Be open to
Yes.
receiving the education without
Yes. Yes.
judging it. Just receive it as information, okay, and then
Hmm.
decide what you want to do with that information.
Right. Right.
And then in all of that education, finding a way to honor yourself is
Yeah.
the magic.
It is. Oh my gosh, Leslie, it is. Those were, I mean, those were just jewels. I mean, all four of them, it's perfect. And the way you even laid them out, I think is perfect because it, wrapped in all of what you offered is honoring yourself. I mean, it really is. That's what wraps this in all and brings it all together. Leslie, this was a phenomenal conversation. I knew it would be. I knew it would be. I knew it would be. Look, if you're joining us live, really appreciate you. Would love to get your comments. But if you're catching this on the replay, maybe you're listening to this on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Share what maybe some of your challenges have been with your cultural background, or maybe some of the belief checking you had to do that Leslie just mentioned. And if you've tried that, how's it worked for you? Did you have to a shift? Did you have to make any kind of modifications, pivot at all? Maybe you've run into a few of the challenges that Leslie mentioned, and you've taken some of what she's recommended and implemented. We would love to hear from you. So comment, send me a DM. I'd share it with Leslie. You can find Leslie Benars on LinkedIn. Connect with her. You can see she's a dynamic woman, very engaging, and I'm sure she would have no problem responding to your messages as well. Leslie, again, thank you so much. I'm so honored and blessed that you decided to not join me once but twice.
Yay!
Yeah, so I so appreciate you, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for doing what you do, Linda. This was an honor. Have a great
Uh,
rest of your week.
take care now. Until next